Hey guys, welcome to Rosie's Dessert Spot. In this episode I'll be teaching you how to make a fence chocolate cake decorated with some fresh berries. So I have my cake board, adding a bit of buttercream to attach my cake on. And then add a healthy dollop of frosting in the center and using a spatula, spread it out to the edges and flatten it out. That way our cake remains nice and straight as you add on your layers. Center it and press it down and continue this process. In my other videos I'll show you how to tort and also level your cake, so I'll leave that in the description box below if you'd like to know how to cut your cakes. And once all your layers have been added, with the spatula just press that excess buttercream up against the cake. I'm adding on some extra buttercream to create our crumb coat. Our crumb coat covers the entire cake. It's a thin layer of buttercream that'll make sure that the cake crumbs don't get into our final layer of frosting. Do the same for the top, add a little bit, spread it around, and then with a bench scraper I'm just scraping off the excess and bringing that lip of frosting to the center of the cake. I'll pop that into the freezer for a good 15 minutes. In the meantime, we'll prepare our cake friends. So I have here some baking paper. I've marked it at 12.5 centimeters because my cake is about 10.5 centimeters tall. I want it to come up at least 2 centimeters up from the cake. Then fold it along those dots that you marked and cut along that score line. And if you like, you could leave it straight, but here I've just cut out a couple of triangles just to make it a bit more funky. Now that the cake has set pretty well, I'm adding my last layer of frosting. So adding a healthy dollop at the very top, shifting it out to the sides and flattening out the top. Then I'm adding a generous amount of buttercream onto the sides of the cake, pressing it all in, making sure to cover it completely. And then use your bench scraper to scrape off all the excess. And as you reapply your bench scraper and take off some more, always make sure to take off that excess that's on your bench scraper. That'll make for a much neater cake. And bring that lip into the center again, and we'll pop that back into the freezer. Now I'm going to make some handmade piping bags. I'm taking one edge of my baking paper, folding it over to the other side to make a perfect triangle. Cut off the excess and then cut against that score line in the center, so we now have two perfect triangles. Take one corner, flip it and line it up with the top so you have the flat side facing you. Then take the other corner, wrap it around the cone and make sure that the corners are all three of them are all lining up. And that's how you make your own piping bag. It takes a little playing around. I hope my instructions were clear, but it's pretty easy to do for home. Now here I'm measuring how long my template is. I need to cut it to about 1/2 centimeter longer than it needs to be. Here it's about 1 inch longer, so I'd recommend definitely cutting it shorter than that. You want it to overlap but just slightly. Fill one of your piping bags with some melted dark chocolate. Fold in the corners and then fold the total in half again a couple of times until you get it nice and taut. And then cut off a little snippage of the end just until you get the thickness that you like of chocolate coming through. And then swirl it onto your little template. I added a pretty healthy amount of chocolate onto this. And when you're finished piping, quickly remove that from your baking paper so that it dries nice and shaped. Once that shine is gone and your chocolate's nice and matte but it's still flexible, that's when it's ready to go onto your cake. So you want it to lose its shine but still be flexible. So wrap it around your cake, make sure that the baking paper is in line with the cake board or resting on the cake board. That'll give you the straightest outcome. And then hold it nice and tight against the cake and massage it in. That'll make sure that it sticks to your cake. You can let it sit at room temperature. I leave it for about 15 minutes. Otherwise you can pop it into the fridge for 10 minutes until the chocolate is set, and you'll notice that it comes apart on its own from the baking paper. Then gently start removing your baking paper. Gotta be really careful, and this is why I recommend only adding 1/2 centimeter overlapping. I had that inch overlapping and it sort of stuffed up the where the chocolate meets, but that's a pretty easy fix. If you have some of that spare chocolate that you piped onto the other piece of baking paper, you can just take it off there and pop it straight into those spaces. So it's a pretty easy fix, but this will still become the back of our cake. And lucky last, decorate it with some fresh berries. I've used some strawberries that I cut in half because I really like the colour inside the strawberries. I think it looks really nice that way, kind of breaks it up. Added some fresh raspberries, but you could add whatever you like. And then add in some flowers and you're done. And that's how you make a cake with a chocolate fence decorated with fresh berries and flowers. This particular cake I love because the brown chocolate really contrasts nicely against the vanilla buttercream. And that sort of colour scheme, you know, the whole greens and the reds, it all ties in really nicely. So that's that one. Definitely a lot easier than it looks. I know working with melted chocolate can be a little daunting, but as long as you follow those steps, you know, and your chocolate's not too shiny, it's starting to become matte, it's still flexible when you're working with it, applying it to the cake, it's really not all that difficult. I hope you guys give it a try. Let me know if you do, let me know how you went. I always love to hear from you guys, like feedback and stuff. So it's always welcome. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will catch you next time.